Okay, got it. Slide 289. I thought we got to 300.
298.
298.
You said we actually ended 298, then we said we would continue from 300.
298.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what if the project completion time is unacceptable? What if
Yes,
the
sir.
project? So we are looking at crashing. I think we started a crashing. We said, so if the project completion time is unacceptable, we need to shorten it, which in project management we refer to as crashing. The project manager would need the following information: the regular time and then the crash time estimates for each activity. Now, the regular time will be the regular time we would have completed the activity if no crashing is needed. And crashing time will be the earlier time that the activity to be completed. So usually the regular time will be longer than the crashing time. So if the regular time is say 10, crashing time will be say 6, 8, depending on the nature of the activity. So for us to do crashing, we said the regular time and crash time estimate for each activity will be required. Then regular costs and crash cost estimates. So if we are completing the activity on regular time basis, the originally estimated time, what would be the cost involved to complete that activity? Remember, each activity in a project comes with cost. Each activity in a project comes with cost. So if we are completing the activity within the regular time, we will need the regular cost attached to the activity. And then we also need the crash cost. If we are crashing an activity, we need to know the crash cost for each activity. Now we also need the indirect project cost per day. So we need to know how much per day, indirect costs per day we are allowed to crash the activity, as well as the project completion time. So if the expected completion time is not desirable, is not acceptable, then which date, which time is acceptable? That will be the desired project completion time. Then we also need to know our critical path activities, which we've gone over this law over and over again. So it shouldn't be something new to us. Okay. So with this information, we compute the following. We compute the extra activity cost. And Leonie, how do we compute the extra activity cost?
Hello?
Leonie. Hello, Leonie.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go.
Maybe the crash cost minus regular cost.
Yes. So the crash.
Since the crash cost is higher than the regular cost, you have to know the difference.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah, you are right. Then we also need to know the allowable crash time per activity. Allowable crash time per activity. And that is equal to our regular time minus the crash time. Then we need to know the extra activity cost per time period. This time period can be 1 day, it can be 1 week, it can be in months, depending on what the time composition is. So it can be in days, it can be in weeks, it can be in months. Okay, so the extra activity cost per time period is equal to the extra activity cost, which is this one, divided by the allowable crash time per activity. Allowable crash time per activity. So if you divide this by this, you get this. You get this. Don't be confused. We'll go through examples for you to understand it better. Crashing procedure. We crash those activities. So from all that I have said about crashing, what do you think would be an alternative word for crashing? Something that will make it simple for an ordinary person to understand. Yes.
Can it be
Anybody?
compressed? Like
compress. Okay. Nade?
I was going to say fast track, but I think compress is better.
Compress doesn't come in readily.
Okay, it's
And
fast track.
Fast track. Let's see if there's a better alternative. Let's go.
Stop.
Yes. I thought I heard a male voice. Who is it?
So I said to stop the activity.
Luis. Is that
Yes, sir.
to what? To do what?
To stop the activity.
To stop the activity.
Yes, sir.
S-T-O-P, stop.
Yes, sir.
Luis. How do you stop the activity? You don't stop the activity in crashing. Yes. Any other? If an activity has to be completed in 10 days, I would think that the 10 days is unacceptable and we are bringing it to, we want it to be completed in 6 days. You can't find any alternative word. Yes, Bismarck.
what about shorten?
Shortening. That's the word I was expecting from you. We are shortening the activity time, activity duration. Okay, let's go. So we crash those activities with the lowest crash cost first. Remember, we said we want to finish the work as early as possible, but we also want to do so at minimal cost. We want to do so at minimal cost. So we crash those activities with the lowest crash cost first, and we do 1 day at a time. Then we continue crashing as the cost to crash is less than the benefit derived from crashing. Remember to be guided by the indirect project cost and the permissible crash cost per day, indirect crashing cost. Okay, then we continue crashing as long as the desired project completion time is not achieved. Continue to do so until we have achieved the project desired project completion time. Now, as we continue to crash, 2 or more project paths, network paths, may become critical as the original critical path becomes shorter. And when that happens, it may be economical to crash an activity which is common to all. I mean, all those paths that have become critical paths now. It may be economical to crash an activity which is common to both paths than to crash one activity in each path. Okay. So let's look at an example. Using the following information, develop the optimal time cost solution. Now, indirect project costs are 1,000 Ghana per day. Now, 1,000 Ghana per day means that you cannot crash activities that when you add costs will go beyond 1,000 per day. Altogether, you understand. Now, the desired project completion time is 18 days. It's 18 days. So, as we have done before, we'll draw our network diagram using the details provided. So how many activities do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 activities. And the predecessor activities are these. Okay. Remember that you definitely would have a question on projects in your end of semester exams. Now, can you quickly try your hands on this? I know some of you have printed this thing. Don't look at it. Quickly try your hands with this and let's see what you are going to get. Try your hands on the network diagram. I give you 2 minutes to do this. Yes, Ultra Commando. Building. No, I didn't see how to. Yeah, that's better. Oh, that's starting to look like a big one. I'm not looking like a big one. This is driving me. This have the hand. The hand. Well, do you know? I'm seeing the person who made this. What I think. See now it is. Oh, look how it's doing. Ah, the girl stand. And you use it. Let me see the price. Okay. Look at buy you see one thing. Oh. Could you say something very different about that? Are we done?
Yes, please.
Okay. Have you done your forward pass and backward pass?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Oh, I thought you do it. So do your forward pass, backward pass, and let's see in how many days will the project be completed.
20.
In how many days?
27.
27 days.
Yes,
Mine
that's
said
20.
20 days.
20
In
days.
20 days. In 20
Yes.
days. You see? And we are saying here, the B part is saying that the desired project completion time is 18. Meanwhile, when you did the network diagram, the indication is that you are going to, the project will be completed in 20 days. And so that 20 days obviously is unacceptable. Now we want it to be completed in 18 days. The government of Ghana awards a contract. I mean, a lot SS students have come out. We want the universities to accommodate all of them because of perhaps political whatever. And they've awarded contracts to get infrastructure completed within the various campuses. And maybe the contractors are saying that per the nature of these buildings, they need to be completed in, say, minimum 1 year. And the students are also coming in about eight to 9 months. So the government can ask that these contractors do crashing to shorten the project completion time. I'm just trying to give you a demonstration of how this concept we are learning can be applied in reality. Okay. So the 20 days is unacceptable. We want it to be completed in 18 days, which means that we need to crash the project by 2 days. Okay. And again, go ahead with what you have done in front of you. Go ahead and determine the slack for each activity. And then tell me which activities will be define your critical path and your critical activities. Is that done?
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you who did it, this is what you are likely to get. This is what you are likely to get. Did anybody get something different from this? Nobody. Okay. So how many parts do we have in here? 2. A, B, and F, and then C, D, F.
E and F.
Can you tell me which of the 2 parts consider a critical part?
The second one, C, D, E, F.
C, D, E, F, because the slack for all those activities are equal to 0. So those are critical path activities. Okay. Now the next thing is to look at the crashing table. So this is also required for you to be able to do the crashing, because we need to be able to determine the crash cost per day and then the allowable crash time. Okay. Now, these are the activities within the network. Those with asterisks are the critical path as you have done. Oh, sorry, is A not a critical path? No, A is not.
No.
C, D, E, F. So C, D, E, F. Those with asterisks are the critical activities. So we got this from the ones with asterisks. We got it from our network diagram. We got this from the table. The predecessor activities, we got them from the table. Then the regular time required to complete each activity, we got it from here, also from the table. Okay? Then we come to the crash time. The crash time in days is also gotten from the table. Then we come to the regular cost. Regular cost is also from the table. Crash cost is also from the table. So you are not really doing much here. What you are expected to work on is these 2 last columns. is this two last column, the total allowable crash time, and then the crash cost per day. How do you think we come by the figures here? So let's start from the zero. The formula says, if we want to compute the total allowable crash time, the formula says, regular time minus
crash time.
regular time minus the crash time. So we go back here. So over here, the reason why we got a zero is the regular time minus the crash time. Regular time is 6 days, crash time is 6 days. So 6 minus 6 will give you 0. Regular time minus the crash time, 10 minus 8 will give you
2.
2 days. 5 minus 4 will give you 1. 4 minus 1 will give you 3. 9 minus 2 will give you, 9 minus 7 will give you 2. And 2 minus 1 will give you 1. So these are the allowable crash time. Now, what this means is that, sure you'll be asking me, Teacher Gusha, what are we going to use this for? What this means is that for activity A, can we crash activity A?
No.
No, we can't crash it. The minimum we can do it is the regular time, 6 days. We can't do it any faster than the 6 days. For activity B, we can crash it by 2 days. And for activity C, we can crash it by 1 day. For activity D, we can crash it by 3 days, and so forth and so on. Now let's come to the crash cost per day. Again, let's go to the formula. I usually want you to, let's go. To know where these are coming from. So, can you see the formula?
Yes, please.
The extra activity cost per time period. So the extra activity cost divided by the allowable crash time per activity. So let's go. So obviously, if we take this, what is the crash cost here?
7,000.
7,000. Now, if you subtract 6,000 from it, how much do you have remaining?
1,000.
1,000. And so if you divide the 1,000 by 2 days, what do you get?
500.
500. 500. 500. So that is why this place is 0. If you subtract this 500 from this 500, you get 0. Divided by 0, that's what you have. Let's come to the 300. This is the crash cost. This is the regular cost. Remember, the crash cost is always higher than the, most of the cases higher than the higher or equal to the regular cost. Here we have 7,300 as the crash cost. Regular cost is 7,000. Now we want to know the crash cost per day. So we subtract the 7,000 from the 7,300. And what do we have remaining?
300.
300 Ghana cedis. If we divide 300 by 1, what do we have?
300.
300. Let's come to this. This is, Leonie, what figure is this?
10,100.
10,100. Leonie, 10,100 minus 8,000. What do you have remaining?
2,100.
You have 2,100 remaining. Now, if you divide 2,100 by 3 days, what do we have?
700.
700. That means to crash this activity per day, it will cost you 700. To cost you 700. So that's how we come by these figures. Class, up to this point, any question? And remember, I have said to you that for you to do crashing, you need this table. And for this table, I mean, right from A, B, C, D, up to F, all these figures will be given you. What you compute is the last two columns, the total allowable crash time, and then the crash cost per day. So you compute this. Okay? And the rule also says that if we are crashing, because we want to speed up the work at the minimal cost, if we are crashing, we should start with activities that have what in terms of cost?
The lowest.
We start with the lowest. We start with the lowest. So it will be a good idea to start with 300, and then we'll move on to
500.
500, then to 600, then to 700, then to 800. If after crashing 300, we have still not achieved the desired project completion time of 18 days, then we'll move on to the 500. We crash and we still haven't achieved the desired project completion time of 18 days, then we continue. Remember, we want to do this at the very minimum cost. Okay. So the critical path activities are C, D, E, F. We've seen this already. Atiemo, Eden, Ebenezer, Kwame.
Sir, Prof, you said that when the activity has been crashed, we should start each activity with a minimum
Adam, I
crash
lost
cost.
you along. Adam, I lost you along
So-
the line. Can you come again, please?
You said that when an activity has been crashed, we should start with the minimum cost. So what if we are starting with the minimum cost? There is a cost which is higher, which is a
Adam, I only got
that
portions
must
of
be
your.
done before minimum activity.
Adam, your line is breaking. Or we can't really hear you. Your network is terrible.
Can you type it? Can you type your question?
Okay.
We can hear you. Okay. So the critical path activities are C, D, E, F, and the project expected to be completed in 20 days. This is something we have already determined as a class. We know these are the critical path activities, and the project is going to be completed in 20 days. If we want to shorten this time, if we want to crash the project completion time from 20 to 18 days, then we need to do the following. So we'll run the critical path activities. We have the following. Remember, we have already identified C, D, F. And we also said, I think I asked this stupid question last week. I want to repeat the same stupid question. Why is it that when we are crashing, we focus on critical activities and not on non-critical activities? Nade?
Without the critical activities, the other activities cannot take place.
I disagree.
Why
Somebody
do you
should give
disagree?
Nade- improve on Nade's inputs. Any other?
Can I take it again then, since nobody wants to talk?
Okay, go ahead, Nade.
The other activities, the non-critical activities, are dependent on the critical activities. So for them,
No, they are not dependent.
so how are their predecessors?
Uh,
Oh,
I
okay,
just
they're not
want to-
necessarily dependent, but they need to be done before the other ones can be done. Or okay, well, somebody. I think somebody's trying to talk.
There's a hand up. You are trying.
Nanaya.
It's good. Nanaya,
Hello, sir. Good evening.
good evening. Go ahead, please.
Please, the critical parts, if they are delayed, we can't complete the project
right.
at a schedule. It will be the schedule time will be affected, but for the non-critical parts, it wouldn't have any effect on the project. That's why.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
So I think you are closer. You are closer. And there is, I think, a couple of hands up. Let me give them the opportunity to also contribute. Leonie, your hand is up. Nania has already spoken. Leonie?
Yes, sir. The critical path determines the completion of the project. So if we want to reduce
Perfect.
or shorten the project time, we need to reduce
Perfect, Leonie.
the critical.
The critical path activities determine the completion of the project. And because of this answer, I'll take you back to how did we get the 20 days? The 20 days is as a result of the
Let's finish.
summation of the duration of the critical path activities. Now let's quickly do this. What is the duration? C is a critical activity, correct? Because of slack
Yeah.
equal to 0, correct?
Yeah.
What is the duration of C?
5.
5 days.
D is a critical activity, correct?
Yes.
What's the duration of D?
4. 9.
So 4 plus 5 is what?
9.
9. G is also a critical activity, correct?
Yes.
So plus 9 plus 9 will be
9.
what?
18.
18. F is a critical activity, correct?
Yes.
And the duration is 2.
Yeah. 20.
So,
Bringing us to 20.
bringing us to 20. That's how we have the, that's how come we have the 20. That's how come we have the 20. And therefore, if we want to shorten the project completion time, it only makes logical sense for us to focus on the critical activities. Already, this activity here can be delayed for 2 days. This can also be delayed for 2 days. If we focus on this, we are only wasting money. Remember also that we said we want to do the crashing at the very minimum cost. So if you pick a critical activity and you are able to crash it even by 1 day, you have reduced the project completion time. This is the reason why we focus on the critical activities. Class, have I been able to explain this to you?
Yes.
Okay. And now that your hand is up.
Yes, I have a question. No, I mean, moving away a little from this. So from what we just saw from the table, right?
Yeah.
The least costly per day to crash is IMC, which is 300 cities. But the allowable time for that is only 1 day. And looking at the network we just drew, we have 20 days to complete the projects, but they need us to complete in 18 days, meaning we have to crash 2 days.
Yes.
Does it make sense to go straight to the critical activity E since it's 2 days and then crash that?
No,
or we have to start from the
if
least
you
at
do
all
it
costs?
2 days, let's go to E. If E,
Yeah.
how much is that?
600.
600. Hello, Nade.
Yes, 600.
So if we go straight to E and we crash E by 2 days, that would be 600 times 2 would be what?
1,200.
200.
1,200.
Do you think
yes.
that would be the would that be the minimum cost?
So I think my question then should be, do we crash, like, is it possible to crash 1 day like the C and then crash only 1 day out of the D? Or once we pick D, we are crashing all 2 days. I think that should be my question.
That's what I'm trying to drive you to understand. So with the rules, we start with the lowest crash cost.
Okay.
We start with the lowest crash cost. And that is why you have this here. So you do the ranking. So if we do the ranking on the basis of the crash cost per day, which is 300, the lowest is 300, and we can crash that by how many days? 1 day. Then the next lowest, I thought I saw 500 here. Let's see. Okay, the next lowest
Yes,
is
there is,
500.
but
But why do you
for
think we
B,
haven't put the 500 in there?
because B is not a critical activity.
Oh, bless you. Bless you for that.
Amen.
Yes. I'm sure somebody will be, but why didn't you bring the 500? We didn't bring the 500 because we are focusing on the critical path activities. And B, where the 500 occurred, is not a critical activity. That's why you don't see the 500 in here. So the next from 300 is 600. And we can crash that activity, E, by 2 days. Next is D. We can crash that by 3 days. And the cost per crashing per day is 700. And the final one is F, which we can crash for 4 days at the cost of 800 Ghana cedis. I have 2 participants whose hands are up. Who are those handsome people? Atiemo?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Please, I have typed the question. Yes, please. I've sent the question. I mean, what if the lower cost or the higher
Okay,
cost
don't
is
worry.
precedent to the
You are still breaking. Let me read the question from the chat box. It's a long one, of course. Hey. So you are saying that the minimum crash cost activity must be done before the higher crash cost. What if the higher crash cost activity is critical? Yes, Atiemo, with the crashing, like I just explained to you, the project completion time is arrived at by summing up the duration of the critical path activities. So if we want to reduce the project completion time, we need to focus on critical activities. So all those activities that will crash will be critical activities. And in crashing the critical activities, we start from the lowest cost and graduate through the cost you have. Is your question answered? I mean, the higher cost is precedent to the
lower
minimum
cost.
crash.
I have sent another one.
Yes, I'm reading it. He said, I mean, the higher cost is precedent to the minimum crash cost. That's what this HMO I don't understand, but maybe I'll explain it here. Let me quickly do this.
Okay.
What is sent is not clear. HMO, we have calculated the crash cost per day for all the activities. We've done the network diagram and we have identified the activities with asterisks by them as our critical activities. When we are crashing, the rule says that we should focus on critical activities. And here, I've not just said the rules, I've explained to you why we need to focus on the critical activities. I think up to that point, it is well explained. Now we need to determine how much it will cost us to crash each activity per day. And that is what we have estimated here. So starting from the critical activities, C, D, E, F, the lowest cost is 300. Then the next lowest is 700. Then the next lowest is the lowest cost is 300, followed by 600, 700, and 800. So if we are crashing, we'll crash 300, then we'll graduate through the cost. So come to 600. If we still haven't achieved our desired number of days, then we'll go to 700 before we go to 800. We are not touching on 500 because 500 is not a critical activity. But in the process of crashing, remember, another path can become critical. And if another path becomes critical, B may be on that path. And in that case, we can consider crashing the B, if it is particularly common to both paths which have become critical. Atiamo, is your question answered? Okay.
Yes, Prof. I'm okay.
I'm sure it's not too clear, but it's because your question is also not too clear. Now your line appears to be okay now. Can you say and speak it out and let's see?
Yes, what I mean was, if an activity is precedent to the other, it means that that one must be done before the other one. So here comes from the crash per course day, crash course per day. We could see that 300 is minimum to 600. So, but here E is depending on D. D must be done before E. So when we jump E, yes, yes.
In crashing, ignore the precedence. Okay?
Okay, yes.
In crashing, ignore the precedence relationships. Focus on which course is lowest first. Okay, so let's go.
Okay.
So we do the ranking, so we know which ones we are going to crash first. All right. So we shorten activity C by 1 day at a cost of 300. The length of the critical path is now reduced to 19 days. Class, I hope you understand this. Any question up to this bullet? If we take 1 day of activity C, we'll do so at the cost to the company of 300 Ghana cedis. And that will lead to we shortening the critical path by 1 day to 19 days. Then what is the next? The next is E, 600. So we shorten activity E by 1 day at the cost of 600. The length of the critical path is now 18 days. And 18 days is the same as ABF. ABF. Let's calculate the length of ABF. 6 plus 10 will be what?
16.
16 plus 2.
18.
18. So what it means is that if we crash E by 1 day at the cost of 600 and we reduce the critical path to 18 days, now that 18 days will be the same as what the second path, which originally was not critical. So now we have two paths which have become critical. And the rule says that when you have two paths which are critical, you choose an activity which is common to both paths. So from what we have here, if both paths are now critical, which activity is common to both paths? Class, have I lost you? Can you hear me? So if we have 18, and we need to crash an activity which is common to both paths, which activity is common to both paths?
F.
Activity F.
It's activity F. This is ABF, CDEF. F is common to both paths. So we'll crash this. But before then, the length of the critical path is now 18 days, same as ABF, which is non-critical path. Now we have two critical paths and we need to improve upon both. So consider shortening F, which is common to both paths, at the cost of 800, or B on ABF for 500 and G on CDF for 600 at the cost of 1,100. We shorten F by 1 day and the project is now 17 days. Now, look at this. This option here, is it that we can shorten F, which is common to both paths, or we can decide that, okay, when we pick ABF, the lowest cost is 500, so we shorten B on ABF. And then we come and crash E by another day, because originally E had 2 days and we crash it by 1 day over here. So we can crash E again by another day, which is 600. And if we do so, we'll have 600 and 500 put together, and that will give us 1,100 cities. But if we go to the question, it says the indirect project costs are 1,000 Ghana cedis per day, which means that we cannot crash any activities that the total cost will exceed 1,000 per day. So in that case, we cannot do this option. We can't do it. Because 500 plus 600 will exceed what is permissible for a day. But permissible for a day. Okay, so let's go into our table to see. Sorry, I'm not there yet. Now the 2 parts are still critical. So we can shorten B by 1 day for 500 and B by another day for 600. But this will exceed the indirect cost of 1,000 per day. So we end the crashing process at this point. Let's take a look. So we need this table if we are doing crashing. These are the paths. In that diagram, network diagram, we have 2 paths, ABF and then CDEF. Okay. This is the original situation. N is equal to 0 when we have not crashed any activity. N is equal to 0, we have not crashed any activity. So ABF is 18 days, CDF is 20 days. Now come to N is equal to 1. So we'll crash an activity per day. And remember, we are focusing on critical path. So 18 is maintained, and then we crash this by 1 day. And which activity are we crashing? We are crashing C. And we are crashing C at what cost? At the cost of 300. Yeah. Then we go to N2, the next level of crashing. We want to crash another day. We have exhausted what the chances we have with C. So we'll go to the next, which is E. Somebody asked a question earlier, can we go to C and crash C by 2 days straight away? No, we start from the lowest cost first. So we'll go to E, after crashing C, we'll go to E and crash it by 1 day at a time. Now we crash E by 1 day, it will cost us 600 and we'll reduce the 19 to 18 days. Now 18, we have both paths being 18, 18. We can go to the next level, assuming that the question did not specify that we need to finish the work in 18 days. Assuming the question says that if we, by how many days can we crash this activity? No days are given. Then you can continue crashing until you get to a point where you can no longer go beyond. But in this case, we've been given 18 days. So you are okay to stop here when you have reached the 18 days. But in this case too, at the 18 days, 2 parts become critical. So we see whether the next one can improve our situation. So, like we said earlier, we pick a cost which is common to both. We pick a cost which is common to both. I'm sure somebody will ask, that's said, we have crashed Yi just by one day, and Yi can be crashed 2 days. And the cost of crashing Yi is 600, far lower than 800. So if we have crashed Yi by 1 day, why don't we crash Yi again at the next level? Why don't we crash Yi again to reduce our cost? Remember, at this point, both paths are critical. So we focus on an activity which is common to both paths, or we can select one from there, one from here. But that is what we did here. And we said if we do so, we are going to get 1,100, which will exceed the allowable crash cost per day. So we can't do that. And that we need to focus on a common activity, which is F. So even though it is expensive, that is what we look at. But if we crash F, it will still bring the project completion time to 1717. So at this point, we can end. we can end. And the total crashing cost will be 300 plus 600 plus 800, which will give us 1,700. In a typical examination question would ask you what would be the total crash cost or crashing cost. You need to compute this for us, okay? Nadia, your hand is up. Nadia.
Yes, please.
This evening, the internet is disturbing us. Nadia, we can't hear a word from you.
Yes, please, can you hear me? Please,
Yes,
can you hear me?
better now. It's better now.
Is this better? Okay.
Yes, please.
So my question is, the desired completion was 18 days, right?
Yes.
And what you showed us, you crashed up to 17 days.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that's not the desired, that's not the correct solution.
Yes, this is for you to understand that we can move on and on and on. And in
okay.
some examples, we can ask you that by how many days can we do the crashing up to? And this is how you need to do it, one after the other, until you get to a point where no crashing will be necessary. You see, but in this particular question, you don't need to come all the way to 3 because it is going to be waste of money. We need a project to be completed in 18 days. From our network diagram, we are completing in 20 days, but the owner of the work says, I want it in 18 days. So after crashing by 2 days, 300 and 600, that should be enough. And that is why the third table is here. I have, oh, sorry. Yay. That should be enough. Some 2 hands are up. Nanaya, I do.
Yes, sir, please. Sir, I didn't see you saying we can crash D. Is it that we can crash D or we can take any of the common components at the critical part to
why should we crash D? D is a critical activity, but why should we crash D? Please note that we are not crashing it in the way they appear in the alphabet, A, B, C, D. We are crashing A, B, C, D here happens, C, D here just happens to be the critical path activities. And we said when we are crashing, our objective is to crash at the very minimum cost. And that is why we need to arrange, we do this ranking of the critical path activities and the crashing cost per day. So you see, C can be crashed for 1 day at the cost of 300. E can be crashed for 2 days at the cost of 600 per day. D can be crashed for 3 days at the cost of 700 per day. And F can be crashed for this. You see? Now, when we crashed C and then we crashed E, we got to a point where the 2 paths became critical. You see? And when the 2 paths became critical, that's why we are saying that we could have crashed another day with our E, because E, we can crash it for 2 days, but we crashed it for only 1 day. And then the 2 paths became critical. So we could crash B for the first path and then G for the second path. But that will give us a total of 1,100, which will exceed the permissible crash cost per day, which is this one. This one. So we can't do that. And in that case, the alternative is for us to focus on the activity which is common to both parts. And if you look at our network diagram, where is our network diagram? F is common to both parts. And that is why we didn't crash D, but we had to crash F. That is your question answered. Oh, no, yeah, sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Class, any further question? So let's come back to the substance. I still have two hands up. Who are they? Bismarck and Wache.
Yes, sir. Sir, please, if the desirable days is not stated, and also the amount to be spent is more than 1,000, should we crash up to the 17?
Should you crash up to the 17? I think it will always be 17.
No, should we crash more than the or we should crash up to the amount given?
You crash up to where it is permissible to, I mean that you can no longer do any crashing if the desired time is not stated. But in most cases, we'll give you the desired time. In most cases, we give you the desired time.
Okay, sir. Thank
Otherwise, it becomes too much work, particularly for an examination. And in reality, the person cannot say crash up to any time limit. If it's a contract that your company has taken to do execute for another company, the company will tell you that you said you'll complete this work in 45 days. The 45 days, we think it's not good for us. We wish it can be completed in 40 days. So the contractor can then work towards the 40 days. That's like, is your question answered?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay. So the question says that desired completion time is 18 days. So at n equals to 0, this is the original position. At this point, no activity is crashed yet. So we go to n is equal to 1, where we crash an activity by a day. So, and we pick activity C because that is the lowest cost. We crash activity C by 1 day, and it costs us 300 cedis. We go to the next level, next crashing level, n is equal to 2, and we crash activity B, which is the next lowest cost, activity A, by 1 day. And that will bring the project completion time to 18. We have achieved the desired completion time. So if we bring it to 18, what it means is that our total cost for crashing will be 300 plus 600, and that will give us, Leonie, that will give us how much?
Hello? 900 cedis.
900
900 cedis.
900 Ghana cedis. 900 Ghana cedis. And again, let's relate it to practice. If we have agreed that yes, this contract will cost us this to be completed in 45 days, and he said, no, the 45 days is not, originally that was fine, but looking at conditions, looking at COVID-19 and all that, we need to make sure that this facility is ready for use by our staff. We need to ensure staff safety. So we need this work to be completed in 40 days. It means we need to incur some extra cost to enable the contractor finish the project in lesser number of days than originally anticipated. So in this, our example, the originally anticipated number of days to complete the project was 20 days. We said 20 days is unacceptable to us. So we need to bring it to 18, and we'll do so at a cost of 900 Ghana cedis. Yeah. Okay, so class, up to this point, any question? Up to this point, any question? So the key things in crashing, yeah, you follow, you draw the network diagram following the processes that you've been taught. The same process, the forward pass, the backward pass, your computation of your slack and all that, to be able to determine the critical path. You do that as we have gone through, and then you come and determine the total allowable crash time, and then the crash cost per day. You calculate this for us. Then you move on to do the crashing with this table. Crashing sequence with this table below. You don't need to write this table for us. This is just for you to understand what we are doing. So once you've done this, you can go ahead and then pick the cost as you have ranked them. In fact, to even make the work easier for you, you can add a column here. If you can see my cursor, you can add a column here and put the ranking here in terms of the cost. So 300 will be 1, and we crash 300 by 1 day. 600 will be 2. We'll crash it by 2 days. 700 will be 3, and we'll crash it by 3 days to make it easier for you. And then you come to this table here, and this will always be there for, that is the starting where if you have 3 parts. So if you have 3 parts, you have all of them here, and before the activity to be crashed comes at the bottom. Okay, if there are no questions, let's quickly move to supply chain management. Has any of you come across the term supply chain management before? Oh, sorry, supply chain. Nani? Nani? Okay. Louis Damson. Louis.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Hi.
Louis, have you come across the term supply chain before?
Yes, sir, but I don't really
Hi.
understand it. But I've come across it before.
You don't understand supply chain?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nade, have you come across it before?
Yes, please, I have.
And do you understand it?
I think basically it talks about the activities or the chain that delivery of goods and services go through before they reach the customer or the consumer. So from the supplier or the producer all the way to the consumer.
Okay. Okay. So I think you have a very good idea of what a supply chain is. And the management of that chain is what we refer to as supply chain management. Sadiq, you said, yes, I have, please. Sadiq, what is a supply chain?
So, supply chain, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, please, supply chain has to do with like buying and selling, procurement, delivering the person's, delivering goods and services to a customer. So what they procure is what you supply to them. So supply chain. So I want 50,000 pens. Then you as a maybe procurement manager will go and look for the 50,000 pens and then deliver it to the company.
Okay, so that is not what a supply chain is.
Oh.
You have an idea, but that is not what a supply chain is.
Okay.
Please mute yourself. Mute yourself. Okay. Now, let me pick on Leonie. Leonie, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Have you eaten bread today?
Right. No, please.
Oh dear. So I can't use you for my example. Nade, have you eaten bread today?
No, please.
Don't behave like the undergrad too. When they know that you
I've
are
eaten chicken today, though.
They say no. Bread will come in that. And they know when they say that, they avoid the question. Okay. Definitely I'll get somebody who has eaten.
Oh,
bread.
but Lewis has eaten
Okay.
today.
You ate what?
No, St. Louis has had bread today.
Louis, Louis Damson.
Yes.
Okay, Bismarck, what he says he has eaten bread today. Bismarck, have you eaten bread today?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay, where did you buy that bread?
I bought it from the total shop.
Yes, very good. You bought your bread from the total shop. So total retail outlet at the total filling station, correct?
Yes, please.
We all know that Total doesn't own a bakery. You agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Now let's assume that, to make my explanation simpler, let's assume that the bread you bought from Total outlet, retail outlet, was A1, because we know A1 has a bakery.
Yes, sir.
So you bought A1 from Total shop. Total is not a bakery, and Total got their supply of the bread from A1 Company Limited.
Yes, sir.
Now, what is the major component or material that is used in the production of bread?
Flour.
Flour, flour, flour. We have flour manufacturers in this country. I know Takrade Flour Mill. I hear there's another one in Tema. Does anybody know it?
Not I know.
No. Okay. Now, again, let's make some assumption here that A1 Company Limited buys its requirement in terms of flour from Takrade Flour Mill. Okay. Now, what is a major raw material that is used in the production of flour?
Wheat.
Wheat, wheat, wheat. Do we grow wheat in commercial quantities in Ghana?
No, sir.
No.
No,
We don't
please.
grow wheat in commercial quantities in Ghana. So the implication is that Takrade Flour Mill will have to import the wheat into the country. Now, Russia grows. Now check on the internet. Countries producing wheat producing countries, and mention 3 of them. Check on the internet for me quickly. Wheat producing countries.
India, China, Australia, Canada, Turkey, France, Germany, America.
Is
Russia.
Russia not in there?
Yes,
Russia
there's
is
Russia in there.
Yes, Russia is in there. I know one company in Tema. They buy their stuff from Russia. Okay.
Yeah.
So good. Do you think Takrade Flour Mill can go to Russia and go to the farming communities and buy the wheat from there?
No.
No, sir.
No. It is just like Cadbury International can come to Ghana and go to the rural communities. PDM, Ejiso, and the rest go and buy cocoa from there. Cadbury International will have to deal with which company in Ghana to buy their cocoa?
Cocoa board.
Cocoa board. Cocoa board. So in the same vein, Takrade Flour Mill would have to go, and in fact, even with that, they will have to even go to the stock, they'll have to go to the commodity market. And on the commodity market, cocoa board will be there and they can buy their items, their cocoa requirements from them. So in the same way, Takrade Flour Mill will go to Russia and buy the wheat, or they will go to the stock commodity market, get a stockist on the commodity market and buy their wheat requirement from that stockist. Now that stockist would also get its supply of wheat possibly from the farmers in the rural communities. So Bismarck, you see that the bread which you ate this morning, we can go through the supply chain and trace the route of that supply all the way to a village in Russia. Do you get it?
Sir.
Hmm?
Yes, please, sir.
And that is what a supply chain is. In the same vein, the boxer shorts you are wearing, don't tell me, why can't I use any example? That's what came into my mind. The boxer shorts you are wearing, if it's cotton, and avoid using the nylon ones, they are not good. If it's cotton, we can go through the chain, and then we arrive at a cotton farmer somewhere in India. So every product has a supply chain. Every product has a supply chain. And you see, when you treat this supply chain management thing, you can also realize that God has been so good to mankind. Every item we see around us, every item that makes human life meaningful can be traced through the supply chain all the way back to nature. Pick the door, which is right in front of you, which you have locked. If it's wood, can we trace the chain back to nature?
Yes, sir.
The people in the forest who will cut the wood and use it for whatever it is. What about the computer in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Can we trace the computer back to nature?
Yes, please, sir.
How?
Sir, I believe most of the parts are from metals and some are from rubber. And
Yes.
rubber is
You are correct. The metal will come from metal, whether aluminum or iron, and they are extracted from nature, from ground. The rubber can come from trees, the rubber plants, or they can come from remains of the extract we get from petroleum extraction. The energy which fuels the computer you are using, where is the energy coming from? It may come from water, or it may come from
wind.
Or the sun.
Are you fanning your laptop?
Wind turbine, wind turbine.
Wind energy.
I said this in a weekend class, and somebody says, I disagree with you. Some of us, we don't use solar, we don't use petrol, we don't use we use diesel to power our own generators. Then I asked him, where are you getting the diesel from? Then he said, The diesel is also coming from nature, and even the generator you are using is also can be traced to nature. So whatever it is, we can trace everything back to nature. So supply chain simply refers to the series of organizations that a product flows all the way from suppliers to the final consumer. We saw in the case of Bismarck Iwache, we have just demonstrated how a wheat from a poor rural farmer in Russia has ended in his stomach in Ghana today. You see, and that is what a supply chain is. Now, the management of this supply chain has become a competitive weapon in recent times. That if organizations are able to manage their supply chains effectively, they are able to improve their competitive performance. And they are able to outcompete their competitors. There is a term that says organizations no longer compete. It is supply chains that does. That in the past, organizations were competing. In recent times, individual organizations no longer compete. It is supply chains that compete. The supply chains that compete. Okay. Up to this point, any question on what a supply chain is?
Yes, please. How do supply chain compete?
Okay. How do supply? I wish we were doing face to face, so I would have given this to you as an assignment. How do supply chains compete? Okay. I give you 2 minutes. In fact, you can build it on. You can Google organizations no longer compete. It is supply chains that compete. And then from there, how do supply chains compete? 2 minutes. Let's do a quick research. Let's stop research on Google. See what responses you get. Are you there? Has anybody found something? Yes, Bismarck. Bismarck, your hand is up.
Sir, please, the question, is it that how is supply
He is asking how do supply chains compete?
Oh, okay, sir.
Are we there?
Yes.
Okay. So what did you find?
Sir, please, the little I found is that supply chain normally goes through cycles and intervals. And they consider the cycle time and the cost and the product involved. That's why.
Okay. Any addition? Oh, nobody wants to contribute? Okay, so let me make it simple for you. You see, every product is going through a supply chain. And when the concept of supply chain management emerged in the early 2000s, organizations have embraced that supply chain management concept, that rather than operating as a silo, if I say silo, you understand.
Yes, please, sir.
Yes. Rather than operating as a silo, why don't we, as supply chain partners, and if I say supply chain partners, I'm referring to the entities which sit down along the supply chain. So in the case of Bismarck Watches bread example, total retail outlet or total shops would have a kind of agreement with A1 bread. A1 bread will in turn have an agreement, some kind of connectivity, collaboration with Takrade Flour Mill. Takrade Flour Mill will also have some kind of collaboration with the stockists in Russia. The stockists in Russia would also have some kind of collaboration with, what is the name? The farmers in the rural areas. And this kind of collaboration improves how quickly a product can be introduced to the market. It also improves the ability of the supply chain to respond to changing customer needs. Remember, I keep on saying that customers are like women. They always want to see new things. Even if the old one is still good, they always want to see new things. So they always want change. And this is why the supply chain should be able to quickly respond when they realize that there is a change in customer requirements or customer needs. And as an organization, you can't do this alone unless you collaborate with your supply chain members. So let's pick A1, for example. A1 is producing bread, but they don't sell the bread themselves. The bread is sold by other outlets like total shops. Now, a total shop observed that there is a change in customer need. Instead of coming for the A1 bread, which is largely white, now customers are beginning, when they come, what they ask for is brown bread or wheat bread. Everybody can say, oh, maybe wheat bread at Tomunibi. Wheat bread, wheat bread, wheat bread. It tells you that something is happening. A1 is sitting at the back. He doesn't know what is happening at the front end. So if that information is not shared by total shops to A1, what happens? A competitor will take the market by force. And this is why we are saying that supply chain management involves collaboration among the supply chain partners. So if Total is able to communicate that information on time to A1 that, hey, there's something happening at the front end. Customers are no longer interested in wheat, what is the name? They are no longer interested in
Wheat bread.
Wheat, is it wheat bread or whatever? They are interested in corn bread. That's what they want. So if you can switch to corn bread, that would be helpful. That information is shared. A1 is also going to share that information with Takrade Flour Mill. So that instead of producing wheat flour, they are now going to focus on the production of which kind of flour? Corn flour. Corn flour. And then it moves on and moves on and moves on. So that is how supply chains compete. A major, let me take this to airline manufacturer. I think last week I mentioned that example. I will repeat it again. What is which company is competing with Airbus?
Boeing. Boeing, yeah.
Boeing. And I told you that in the manufacture of airplanes, some components, it takes a longer time because you have to try it because of the risk involved. You have to try it and 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 make sure that, yes, it works. Because before you can fit it onto an airplane and say that it should fly people in the air. And I gave you an example that there was a component that Airbus usually takes them 1 year to produce. But when they started collaborating with their suppliers, they were able to cut the 12 months production time to only 3 months. You see how collaboration, and that is a typical supply chain. That's how the supply chain, collaboration between supply chain members has helped to improve product availability. And that is how supply chains compete. Now, because we are dealing with supply chain management, let's also look at some two terminologies which you come across frequently. We often hear things like upstream supply chain, downstream supply chain. If you have ever been to the riverside before, particularly those of you who grew up in a village like myself, if you go to the riverside, there is a portion that the river is flowing from. So where the river is flowing from is called the upstream. And where the river is flowing towards is called the downstream. So upstream, downstream. Those terminologies have been borrowed into supply chain management to look at activities that takes place at the upper end of the supply chain and to look at activities that takes place at the lower end of the supply chain. So those activities taking place at the lower end of the supply chain, we refer to them as downstream supply chain activities, and then upstream supply chain activities. If we take the oil and gas industry, for example, a typical upstream activity will be, can anybody mention anything?
Drilling for oil.
Drilling for oil. Those things are taking place at the far end, at the supplier end. So drilling, extraction. And can anybody cite any activity that is taking place at the downstream level? So what the filling stations are doing? Those are the downstream activities. The distribution are all part of the downstream. So when you hear these terminologies, don't be confused. Upstream supply chain, downstream supply chain. This is what it simply means. So you need to know where you sit within the supply chain, whether you are within the upstream or you are within the downstream, so you can regulate your activities. Okay, now let's move on. I think I've already done most of the explanation. I'll be jumping over some of the things. So the facilities, the functions, the activities involved in producing and delivering a product or service from suppliers to customers is known as the supply chain. The facilities. So if we pick total shop, Bismarck, we are still using your example. If we take your shop, the total shop where you bought a bread from, those are facilities. And within that facilities, there are functions. The same way there are activities. If we go to A1 company, they'll have facilities, they'll have functions, they'll have activities. Move on backwards upstream of the supply chain, we come to the manufacturer of the flour, talk about the flour mill. They have a facility, they have functions in their activities. So the facilities, the functions, the activities involved in producing and delivering a product or a service. That tells you that it is not only a product that would have a supply chain, but a service can also have its supply chain. Okay? From suppliers to customers, it's not a supply chain. There are 4 fundamental processes, and these 4 fundamental processes involve acquiring customers, producing materials and components from suppliers, producing or manufacturing products, and meeting customer needs or filling customer needs. We have the upstream and downstream members of the supply chain. I think I've already explained this. We tend to see inventory, and another word for inventory is what?
Stock.
Stock. I said the Americans prefer to use the word inventory. If you read most American books, you see inventory rather than stock. And the British go with stock. So, but they refer to the same concepts. And we have also have dual flow of information. If we say dual flow of information within the supply chain, but even before we come to this very last bullet, there are certain flows from the demonstration we had with Bismarck's bread. There are certain flows within the supply chain, but one of them is information, which is flowing in both directions. Can you mention other things which are flowing through the supply chain? Are there any things which are flowing through the supply chain? Oh, class, please talk to me.
Please, can you say packaging?
I don't get the question.
We said, fine, the last bullet here, we said there is dual flow of information. So information is flowing in the supply chain, but the direction of flow of information within the supply chain from here is that it's going both upstream and downstream. Information is flowing from
suppliers
downstream to upstream. It's also flowing from upstream to downstream. Apart from information, are there any other flows within the supply chain?
Cash and product.
Cash, money, l'argent, l'argent. Leonie, how do you call cash in French?
L'argent.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, l'argent. Cash. It's also flowing within the supply chain. And interestingly, you see, Bismarck, how much did you pay for the bread?
The 10 cities.
10 cities. You know that 10 cities will flow back through the supply chain all the way back to the farmer in Russia. So the shop will take their portion of the 10 cities and give the rest back to A1. A1 will take their portion of the 10 cities and give the rest back to Chakrade Flour Mill. Chakrade Flour Mill will take their portion of the 10 cities and give the rest back to the stockists where they bought the wheat from. The stockists will take each part of the 10 cities and give the rest back to the farmer. And that's how it is shared. So money flows, it goes upstream. Again, money can also flow downstream through the supply chain. So a manufacturer can say, okay, if you don't have the money to set up the facility, I will set up the facility for you. I will set up the facility for you, and then you start operating, and I will deduct the cost of setting up the facility for you over a period of time. Over a period of time. There is, in England, there is this shop called Subway.
Yeah.
Yeah, Subway is similar to, what is the name? The one in Ghana here.
Burger King.
Burger King, and then KFC.
KFC.
And McDonald's. We don't have McDonald's in the country, but Subway focuses on healthy food. Bismarck, I'll come to you. Subway focuses on healthy food. So the use of vegetable, not the junk that McDonald's and KFC and Co sells. They see their own as healthy food. Now, if you want to set up a Subway, you apply, you get it, and Subway will come and set up the facility for you, because they want their facilities to look similar. So they will come and set up the facility for you in terms of decoration, everything, and even supply you with some of the input requirements that you need. You see? Now, if you're coming to set up the facility for you, it's just like they're pushing money forward, downstream into the supply chain, which will be recovered over a period of time. Okay, Bismarck, here, now you can ask your question.
Sir, please, with the Subway, I don't think we have Subway, or comparing Subway to KFC, because they are services they provide. I don't think we can get some in Ghana.
Oh, we can. I don't know whether Subway would give somebody a franchise to go and run in another country. I don't know. But I know Subway is in America. Check whether Subway is in America.
Yeah, Subway is in America and also in Malaysia as well.
Then it does. So it's just up to somebody, a brave person, to say that I'm going to buy the franchise from them. So I will come and operate in Ghana. I'm sure the KFC we have in Ghana here is a franchise that somebody has gone to buy.
Okay, sir.
Is anybody working with KFC here? I strongly suspect so that it's a franchise that somebody has gone to buy, and he's operating KFC in Ghana. But if you buy the franchise and you're operating it, you need to make sure that the food content is the same, so that if I come to Ghana and I buy KFC, and if I go to India and I buy KFC, the taste will be the same. Consistency is very important. That is one major problem that McDonald's faced when it entered the Indian market. Initially, they allowed the Indians to vary what they sell in McDonald's shops, treating their food in some way. And so people realize, why is it when you come to America or when you come to Europe and you buy McDonald's, the taste is different from when you go to India? So it was affecting their demand, and they said, hey, we can't allow that to happen. So McDonald's everywhere, if it's the same food name in India, in China, in America, in Europe, it should have the same taste. It should have the same taste. I think that all of the fast food restaurants, they've adopted the same concept. Because I don't think if you buy KFC in Ghana, the taste is different from if you buy KFC in Nigeria or say South Africa. See, so they can be here, they can come, just like somebody needs to go and buy the franchise and come and operate. But if we want them to come themselves, it will take time. Okay, so like we are saying, yes, Bismarck.
Sir, please, mine is about the free drinks they give.
Yours is about what?
The free drinks they offer. The free drinks.
The free drink. But the free drink, don't you even see differences? I was surprised that, yes, I was surprised that in UK, the free drink is just a cup, a small cup, plastic cup. Then I happened to go to America, and hey, I can drink as much as I want.
Yeah, in some parts of Europe, you can actually drink as much as you
And
want.
drink a lot.
Surprising. Oh dear. Anyway, so we're talking about the flow. So information, cash can flow both directions. But another thing that also flows, there is something in supply chain management we call reverse logistics. I'm sure some of you may have come across the term before. Reverse logistics. Can somebody Google it now and tell us what it means? What is reverse logistics? Google it. Reverse logistics.
Return of goods.
Return of goods.
Yes.
Yeah, similar to that. Yeah, return of goods. You see, materials or products is another flow within the supply chain. So if you look at the Bismarck example, the bread example, the material is going from upstream to downstream supply chain. The wheat turning into flour, the flour turning into bread, the bread coming into the retail outlet. That is the flow, that is the material flowing. But we can also have materials flowing right from the retail outlet through the system upstream. In that case, we have what we call reverse logistics. We call it reverse logistics. The drunkards in my class, yeah, on Friday nights, you go and sit in a beer bar. Madam, yes, Give me one chilled club beer, and then the madam comes with a club beer. After drinking the club beer, what do you do with the bottle?
We return it
To who?
to the
Retailer.
retailer.
The retailer assembles the bottles in a crate. When the crate is full, what does the retailer do with the bottles?
Back to the supplier.
Until if she bought it from a wholesale, she returns the bottles to the wholesale. Then the wholesaler will also return the bottle back to which company produces club beer in Ghana?
Accra Brewery.
Radinka.
ABC.
I mean, no.
May God be with you. Oh, they are just products, so you know the manufacturers.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it's because of advert.
We read why.
Okay.
Be at the Nuane Club.
Yeah, the Nuane Club. Anyway, so it flows through. And then last week I was also giving you an example of I gave you the example of mantra. Sometimes when a caterpillar part may be broken down and it cannot be repaired in Ghana. So whoever has bought that machine, that earth moving machine, will bring the parts to Mantrack. Mantrack will then ship the parts to Caterpillar Inc. and they will fix the problem and return the parts back to Ghana. So that flow backwards is what is the name? It's called reverse logistics. It's called reverse logistics. Or reverse logistics. And these days is important. I read something beautiful about BMW and how they are now managing their reverse logistics. Reverse logistics. To the extent that in Europe, they are now beginning to buy old cars that people are no longer interested in. I mean, like people have bought BMW, they've used them over ages and the car is now old, they parked them somewhere. They are rebuying and they want to recycle. Yes, bought as scrap and they are recycling them. Reverse logistics. Any question on reverse logistics? It's an interesting area that people can look at for their research, for your long essays. It's an interesting area. And sometimes in Ghana, we don't do that. In Europe, where if you want to buy, likely if you want to get a phone, you get it through a telecom organization like what we have here, Vodafone, MTN, and then the rest. The company gives you a phone, you are the final user of the phone, you start and there is a problem with the phone, you send it back to the telecom organization, they will pick the phone, send it back to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer will look at it. Is the parts fixable? Is the phone fixable? If it is fixable, they fix it, and in many cases, the product will return to the market as a refurbished product. As a refurbished product. And usually refurbished products come at a lower price. Sometimes we tend to refer to those as store reject in our own parlance. Store reject. Which store rejected it? All right, so how many flows have we so far identified within a supply chain?
Two.
Hey, two. Ubwa.
It's four.
Okay, one.
Cash.
One, cash, money. Two,
Information.
information. Three,
Products.
products. Products. Products. In which direction is information flowing?
Dual.
Dual. In which direction is cash flowing?
Dual.
Dual. In which direction is product flowing?
Dual.
Dual. What is the appropriate term for the backward flow of product through the supply chain?
Reverse.
Reverse.
Logistics.
Reverse logistics. Reverse logistics. Thank you. Thank you. So, supply, what I gave you, the example I gave you about Bismarck's bread is what we refer to as supply chain, not supply chain management. It's simply supply chain. The entities through which a product or a service flows from source to the final consumer is the supply chain. Now, the management of this chain for efficiency and for responsiveness, we term that as supply chain management. Okay? It is the management of activities that procure materials and services, transforming them into intermediate goods and final products, and delivering the products through a distribution system that will make it more responsive to customer needs while lowering costs. And traditionally, these were seen as a standalone entities. Now we say that organizations no longer compete. We need to compete as a supply chain. Was it in this class that I gave you the example about Walmart? Hello?
Hi.
I said, was it in this class?
Lucy.
Oh dear. I'm trying to get a bottled water. Let's see if I can get one here. Bottled water. And you see, for us to manage supply chain, for us to improve collaboration and connectivity among supply chain partners, technology plays a key role. Technology plays a key role. Now, the world's biggest employer is Walmart, with over 1 million employees. Now, Walmart deals with suppliers all across the globe. And what Walmart has done is that in order to reduce the level of inventory it should keep, and the level of inventory that suppliers of those products, manufacturers of those products would have to keep, they have introduced technology to enable a real-time sharing of information between Walmart as a retailer and its respective suppliers. So that when a product is sold, instantly that information gets to the manufacturer of that product. And this is where this thing on the product becomes critical, something we call barcode. Barcode. I guess a lot of you know what a barcode is. I'll on my video and show you the barcode here. So can you see the barcode?
Yes,
This
sir.
bar of lines.
Yes, sir.
About 13 of them. And if you have observed, if you go to ShopRite, if you go to the game, if you go to Melcom and you buy from them, you go to the checkout point, all the customer service officer will do is pick the product and show where the barcode is pointed to the scanner. Then the scanner picks information from this bars here. So this bar here, these bars here contain very good information about the product. In fact, it contains the manufacturer date. It contains the manufacturing company's name. It contains the price of the product. It contains, for if it's Melcom, it contains the information about the quantities they have in stock. It contains the expiry date and everything here. And that is why when they run a command, the command can pull out all items which are due to expire, let's say in 2 or 3 weeks time. And quickly, what do? They go to the shop floor and reduce those prices. I'm sure some of you have not observed, but it's something that is regularly done by MaxMart. Those of you who shop with MaxMart, particularly with drinks, every week you go in there and a drink that normally sells for about 14 cedis, 15 cedis, and you see it going for 7 cedis. If you check the expiry date, you realize that it is about a week or 2 weeks to expiry. And that is why they have reduced the price. So this is one of the key technologies employed in supply chain. Now, coming back to my Walmart example, when Walmart scans this product off their shelf, instantly the manufacturer, the producer of this product gets that information that one of my product is sold, and look at all their outlets. So whenever any of this product will be sold, the supplier gets the information. So that enables the supplier to work with real-time data rather than basing their production on guesses and hunches or forecasts, unrealistic forecasts. And by doing this, they are enhancing visibility to what extent you can see the other ends of the supply chain. They enhance visibility within the supply chain. And that is the collaboration we are talking about. That is the partnership we are talking about. That is how, when we manage supply chains, it improves competitiveness for organizations that sits along the supply chain. Okay. Now, an improved version of this barcode system is what we call the RFID. Now, the RFID will usually not be a bar like this. It's a small, tiny chip, which is inserted into the product. Normally, they tend to use the RFID code on computers, on very expensive but small items within the retail outlets. There is a whole lot of myths around the RFID system. I'm sure you ask, what is RFID? Radio frequency identification. There are a whole lot of myths. In fact, it was supposed to come and revolutionize the retail industry, but they haven't been able to achieve that target because of some of the myths. Initially, people thought that American government introduced the RFID thing to try and spy on people. In fact, there is a website called, if you type in spy chips or spy chips, that website will pop up, and it's all about the RFID thing. Yeah? So many retailers avoided it, but still some of them are using it. But the capability of the RFID far outweighs the barcoding system. Now again, let me also tell you how this barcoding system works within the retail outlets. So if you go into the retail outlets and this product is sitting down on the shelf, the barcode is active. It has been activated. So anytime you enter a retail shop, ShopRite, Melcom, the big ones, the entrance, turn and look at the size of the doors. You see some metal standing there. They are scanners. So if an item has not been scanned, this one, if this item has not been scanned and you take it through that entrance, because the code is active, active. It will send the sensors at the entrance to go off. And that is an indication that an item has been stolen from a shop. And you get arrested. That's the importance of the barcode. But once you take it to the checkout point and the barcode is scanned, the process of scanning also means deactivating the barcode. So once it is scanned, the code is deactivated, and therefore you can take it through the entrance with no sound coming out. With no sound coming out. And so what if you realize, if you've been to a shop where you see people stealing and you cannot even complain, what those guys, when they go, what they do is they go with a scissors, pair of scissors, especially things like belts. They'll cut the code off, because with belts, the code is tied to a strip, which is then tied to the belt. So they cut that strip off, fold the belt and drop it into whatever they are wearing. Those are things that people steal a lot in shops, and shirts, t-shirts and those things. Okay, so we talked about these two technologies. Let's move on. Up to this point, any question, class? So global market, competitive global marketplaces means combined capabilities of every member of the supply chain. Now, when supply chain members are working together, you see, we are all dependent on our capabilities. Each supply chain member will have its capabilities. So when we are working together, we are trying to strengthen the capabilities of the entire supply chain against that of our competitor. And that is one of the reasons why we say that supply chains now compete and not individual organizations. So a typical supply chain will look like this. A typical supply chain will look like this. Yeah. So you have your tier 1 suppliers, tier 2 suppliers, tier 3 suppliers, who will bring them the items, the raw materials, the input to the factory, get them manufactured, which will then be shipped to the distribution centers. This concept of distribution centers is not quite popular in our country. And it's not quite popular in our country simply because formal retailing is also not something which is big in our system. Formal retailing is now growing up. And that's why we see the malls coming up. We started in Accra. Accra now has about how many malls? About 6 of them. Marina Mall, Accra Mall, Palace. Palace is not a mall. Is it a mall?
Yeah, Palace Mall.
No, it's a hypermarket.
The hypermarket. It's not a mall. A mall is a place, it's a collection of stores. So you go to a mall and you have several retail outlets in there. So if you go to Accra Mall, for example, you can have ShopRite in there. I don't think Melcom is in there. Melcom is not there. Melcom has their own strategy for location. And if you look at them critically, you see that they try and minimize costs. And I can understand why their things are a little cheaper compared to the other retailers. There's places that will let them incur costs, which will lead to increased prices of their product. They avoid it. So I don't think you'll find Melcom in any of the malls. Has anybody found Melcom in any of the malls?
Not yet, sir.
Yes, they avoid that. But rather they tend to come close to the communities, and they target communities where the middle class is of a greater percentage. So go to Dansuma. Dansuma is a middle class society. Is there. Ablekuma, my area, my city, is also becoming a middle class community. So you find Malcolm here. So they don't go to the malls. But look at another shop, ShopRite. You won't find ShopRite in our communities. If they started, then they started yesterday. But largely you tend to find ShopRite in the malls. So if you go to a Chimota Mall, there is a ShopRite. If you go to Accra Mall, there's a ShopRite. If you go to the one at Wager, what's the name?
West Hills.
West Hills Mall, there's a ShopRite. What about the game? Okay, since we don't know. But the point I'm trying to put across is that formal retailing is now gaining grounds. So with time, this idea of distribution centers will become a big thing. And if we have this coming up, it also creates employment for our teeming unemployed youth, Okay. Main issue within supply chain is about the uncertainty. Uncertainty emanating from the customer end, largely. And what is the cause of these? Some factors accounting for supply chain uncertainty is the inaccurate demand forecasting, long variable lead times for others, late deliveries from suppliers, product changes, price fluctuations, inflated orders. See? And this can create a whole lot of cost. Uncertainties can create a whole lot of cost. And to deal with these uncertainties, companies tend to depend largely on inventory. And keeping this inventory in response to some of these uncertainties creates what we call the bullwhip effect. The bullwhip effect. Okay, so what is this bullwhip effect? Maybe before I explain further, let me take you to the diagram. You see that a small distortion in information at the downstream portion of the supply chain, as that distortion goes through the supply chain to the upstream portion of the supply chain, the level of distortion expands. So it's just like the entire class, we've lined up. Yeah? The line starts from, or the queue starts from me, followed by Leonie, followed by Nadi, followed by Nanaya. So I whispered something into Leonie's ears. I said to Leonie, say what I've said to you to the next person after you. Then she does. Then the next person does. Then the next person does. Then the next person does. Before it gets to the end, I mean, when that information gets to the end, and you tell the last person what the teacher just said, and the person says it, you see some wide difference. As that information is flowing back through the chain, the information gets distorted. And by the time it gets to the end, it has become something else. And that is what creates the level of inventory that sits along the supply chain. So let's say this is in Accra. There is a little festival going on. People are buying club beer. And this operator here says, oh, this week, normally in a week, I sell like 4 crates. This week I'm selling about 10 crates. So let me order about 20 crates. This person here doesn't know what is actually happening. He doesn't know why this person has all of a sudden jumped from 4 crates to 10 crates. So, and you see there is a block, there's a barrier. That barrier is the wall. This is where we don't have the concept of supply chain invoked or in operation. So we are all standalone entities along the chain. We are not working together. We are not sharing information. We are not collaborating. We are not into any kind of partnership. So based on my hunches, I didn't know better 10 crates. Why has this person come to buy 10 crates? Okay, then I also have to order the wholesaler. I also go to the next level. Okay, let's say this person is a shop buying from a retailer. The retailer is buying from the wholesaler, going back. So using his hunches, you also increase the stock by a certain margin. Then this will also increase the stock by a certain margin until it gets to the manufacturer, who will also produce in large quantities. In the end, the items will not get bought, and it will lead to waste. It will lead to waste. There is something that happened to Cisco. When we are done with the class, Google it. How many years ago? Is it in 2000 and in the 2000s? I think 2000 or 2000, around the 2000s, where they had to write off inventory worth over, is it $2 billion? Because at the time they thought demand was high, so they produced and they stocked that inventory, and all of a sudden demand switched, so they had to write it off. A whole country like Ghana can go for IMF loan of $1 billion, and a company had to write off inventory value of over around $2 billion. You can imagine, you see, and that is what unnecessary keeping of inventory can do as a result of what we call the bullwhip effect, distortion of information that moves along the supply chain. So as it goes by, the distortion widens, the reliability in the distortion, you can see that it widens, and that creates more inventory to be created in response to that thing. Okay, so we come back here. We said bullwhip effect occurs as orders are relayed from retailers to wholesalers to manufacturers, with fluctuations increasing at each step in the sequence. It increases the cost associated with inventory, with transportation, with shipping, with receiving, while decreasing customer services and profitability. Remember, the effect of this excessive inventory keeping is that it reduces profit for everybody. See? Now take the typical Walmart example that I have just relayed to you. If Walmart is selling this product to this customer, straight away, that information is shared with people along the chain. And therefore, there will be no need for them to keep this level of inventory in there. So inventory levels are drastically minimized. And remember, it is your money which you have invested here. So if I'm sharing information with you, leading to you minimizing the level of inventory that is sitting down here, it's going to add to your profit. You can spend that money to put in more products to supply to me or to other customers and to keep it in inventory, you see? So that is how supply chain management improves the lot for every member within this chain. Today, supply chain management is characterized by a rapid flow of information among customers, suppliers, distributors, and producers. Also, suppliers and customers must trust each other and have the same goals in terms of quality, timeliness. Whenever I'm teaching supply chain management, I relate it to our normal relationships. If somebody comes and proposes to you as a woman, you talk to the person, you see whether the person shares the same goal with you. If the person doesn't share the same goal with you, I'm not sure you give in. You keep pushing. You keep denying until the person is tired and decides to go away. So trust is a key element. For example, if we come here and we are saying that Walmart is here and the manufacturer is here, how is Walmart going to scan a product to get that information shared with the customer? The manufacturer of that product, which means the manufacturer's systems are connected to Walmart systems. And you think if I don't trust you, I'll allow you to connect your systems to mine. Class, what do you think?
You won't be allowed if you're not a trusted person or something.
Yes. You won't be allowed. I don't trust you. You won't be allowed. But when that trust is built, yes, we can have that connection. Just like before a woman gives you the lips. So it's until the trust is built and now she's confident. But yes, this is the time. Otherwise, forget it. Papa say, and say it, may try there. Okay, we're almost there. So information is an essential link between all supply chain processes and activities. And information technology has become the most important enabler of effective supply chain management. And I've mentioned some of the technology. Barcode is one, and I've demonstrated how the barcode is used in the retail outlets. Can you imagine? Those of you who are a bit grown in age, you remember this, when Malcolm used to be one single shop around the Opera Square. I remember those days very well. You go and do your selection and you want to pay. What do? At the checkout point, they had a big book because they need to take record of items which are being sold. So they had a big book and somebody will have to write. So this. Now imagine a huge shop like that. How many, and people shopping, the volumes of shopping that people do. How many people do you have to employ to get all those items recorded? Too much. So technology is a big enabler. Let me give you another example of what the RFID, for example, can do. Normally when truckload of items come into the company, you see people wear overcoats with their files, with their papers. Yes, discharge it. How many have you got? And then they'll be marking it, checking the quantities that have come. But if we are using RFID, which is put on all the products in whatever boxes they are, all that we need to do is for the truck to park close to the discharging points. And automatically the readers in the warehouse or the distribution center will pick the entire quantities of items on the truck, go into the database and update it that these quantities have arrived. Nobody has to count anything. You see, unfortunately, the RFID has been termed the spy chip, and it has not been able to revolutionize the supply chain as it should. So yes, because of technology, we are able to have centralized coordination of information flows. We can integrate transportation, distribution, ordering, and production. Okay? So Amazon, for example, has its own organizations, selected organizations that deliver courier service. Now, if I go on Amazon right now and place an order, I won't have to speak to any customer service officer. Its systems will pick my order. There are people working in Amazon warehouses 24/7, picking orders, selecting orders, parceling, putting them together, shipping them. Yeah. So when I place my order, the system receives the order and indicates where these orders are, in which particular shop. They pick them up and the system selects a courier service to deliver the order to me. Nobody will have to pick a phone and say, Leonie Services, I'm calling from Amazon. We want to know whether you are available today to pick a parcel from our outlet and go and deliver it to Teacher Joshua. Look at the volumes of orders they receive a day. So if they are going to pick the phone and call these services, one by one, how many of these can they do in a day? Really impossible. So to manage that supply chain effectively, technology should play a role, and that's what they do. Okay? So direct access to both domestic and global transportation and distribution channels, locating and tracking movement of every item in the supply chain. For example, if you ship an item by a DHL, at any point in time, when you ship an item, you are given a code. You are given a code. Gifty, please off your mic.
I was sleeping, right?
Okay.
I wasn't doing.
If you ship I was talking about DHL. If you ship an item through DHL, you'll be given an item, you'll be given a code. And with that code, you can track the movement of your parcel all through the chain until it is finally delivered. Apologies to all my our Nigerian friends on this platform. I think the DHL hub in West Africa is in Nigeria. Can somebody check for me? The DHL hub in West Africa, where is it? In which country is it? Has somebody found it?
Lagos, Nigeria.
Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you. Now, what it means is that for all the countries around in West Africa, when you move an item, DHL will pick it. It will go to the hub. See, we can relate it to a bicycle, the tire of a bicycle, the spokes, and then the hub, which is in the middle. So the spokes, which connect to the tires, yeah, those are, say, the destinations. So when an item is picked from anywhere around any spot on any of the spokes, it goes down to the hub before it is shipped to wherever location in the world that it's going. You see, if somebody like me, I ship an item to go to the US, a single item like this, DHL will not pick this single item and put it on an airplane and fly it all the way to US. It doesn't make economic sense. So they have to assemble it, put these shipments together until they get load enough to move them across to their various destinations. So when you ship an item, it goes to the hub, Nigeria, and then from Nigeria, it is shipped to other destinations. I was once shipping 2 laptops from Europe to Ghana. Then eventually the person I shipped the laptop to called me and said, "Oh, you only got one of the laptops." I said, "No, I shipped 2. So I called DHL that this is what has happened. And they said I should give them a date for them to do their investigation on the project, on the loss. They'll come back to me. This was in, I think, 2007 thereabout. So they did their investigation, came back to me and said that when my parcel got to West Africa, the Nigeria hub, all items from Europe will also come to Nigeria before it is sent to the respective countries. So when my item the parcel got to Nigeria, they said the box had become loose. So they had to repackage it. And in the process of repackaging, one laptop got missing from the box. Unfortunately, when they were picking the item from me, they asked me whether I wanted an insurance. I said, no, I'm not interested in insurance. I didn't anticipate that this could happen. So I didn't insure my package. And when the items are not insured, DHL will give you a maximum. In those days, I don't know whether they have increased it. DHL will give you a maximum of, in those days, they gave me £100. When the item cost £500. So I lost £400. But if I had insured it, I would have recovered my products from them. I'm sure we all learn a lesson from this one. So next time when we are shipping items through, we could take that insurance policy to cover our backs. Okay. And that is all about locating and tracking the movement of an item. Like I said, they'll give you a code, and with that code, you can go online to DHL website, put it in, and you can see your item went from here to that place, to that place, to that place, to that place. And you can track the movement of your items. There is also intercompany, intra-company information access, data exchange. Obviously, if we are connecting our systems to other computer systems, there is going to be that data interchange and data acquisition at the point of origin and the point of sale. And these days you can see retailers focus on collecting as much data as possible at the point of sale. Particularly those of us who buy and pay with our cards. Data analytics can tell them how often I even buy and the kind of items I frequently buy from their shops. They can do all these analysis to know what customers are buying, which items are moving and which items are not moving. I'll end on 20. So some current applications of information technology for supply chain management include electronic commerce, which is transactions are conducted via a variety of electronic media. And these days we see a lot of electronic commerce. In Ghana here, you have the popular one is Jumia, isn't it? In Ghana, apart from Jumia, which other one is also becoming popular?
We also have gg.com.
Gigi, okay.
Yeah, for the cars.
Can you buy and pay on Gigi website?
Yes.
I've not tried it before, but
I'm sure you most likely like to see their car and stuff because Gigi is mostly for cars. So I think it's better that you meet the person, check the car out and stuff.
Okay.
But I'm sure they have the option of paying online.
Okay. All right, so we also have the electronic data interchange where computer to computer exchange information. You place an order and the system automatically generates acknowledgement of the order and sends you a receipt and all that. We also have the barcode system, which I've already explained, and the type of information the barcode contains. Okay? You have the internet and then the World Wide Web, which are all helping to improve supply chain management. And suppliers, very critical. They are unofficial extension of our companies. If the supplier doesn't exist, we also don't exist. The quality of the input from the supplier to a large extent influences what we do. So if a supplier is giving us very poor quality components, it is going to affect what we supply, what we assemble together and give to our customers. And for us to select suppliers, we need to be able to select suppliers who can deliver our orders to us on a timely basis, produce high quality of materials to meet our requirement, and also try and meet suppliers who will provide us with moderate costs. Because if we focus on excessive material cost, it is going to affect how much we are able to sell to our customers. Now, a company selects suppliers who are committed to the above three requirements. And we need to make sure that we develop appropriate relationships. Because they are critical, we maintain suppliers with good relationships. But of course, I always say that, look, supplier management is like the relationships we keep in our regular, normal lives. We have so many friends, but we don't pick up the phone and call all our friends asking how they are doing. So we focus on those who are critical. Leonie, do you pick the phone and call every friend of yours? Oh, I'm just checking up on you. How are you doing?
No, sir.
Which category of friends you do that to?
The close ones, and depending on the subject, be my group members as well.
Yes, the good ones, depending on the subject. So you pick those that impact your life. True or false?
True.
Yes, there are some who impact your life financially. Those ones you call them regularly. You call them regularly. So we develop appropriate relationship with our suppliers, establishing of linkages, information flow about product demand. And you see, when we are maintaining our relationship with our suppliers, we share information, but not every information is good for us to share with our suppliers. The fact that they are critical to what we do doesn't mean that we should share every kind of information with them. Again, I'll relate it to our relationship. No matter how you love a man, yeah, you know, when you start a relationship, you not tell the man that because I love you, I tell you that I've committed 6 or 3 abortions. You never give that information out. So you look at what kind of information is good for you to share to maintain the success of that relationship. And here we are saying that the product demand, cost information, and quality information are good examples of information that you can share. What do you think would be some kind of information that you can share with us, with your suppliers?
Depending on what you are offering, maybe if it's, let's say, food, for example, people don't like to give out their secret ingredients. So something like that.
Yeah. So a typical example is
KFC claim they have like a secret ingredient that makes their chicken special.
Yes. Coca-Cola, the same thing. Coca-Cola, the same thing. Even though they will buy the Coke from suppliers, but they will never share the information that, oh, we need this quantity of Coke to mix with this to get this. They will never do that. Okay? So when you are sharing information with your suppliers, make sure you share relevant information. Now, let's also understand that effective relationship management with suppliers. We do so through cross-enterprise teams who coordinate processes between the company and its suppliers. Suppliers are required to provide on demand as a way of minimizing inventory levels. See, if we are able to work closely together with our suppliers, like the example of Walmart, we are able to reduce inventory. Remember that the more inventory you have, the more your cost level is, because in the end, some of this inventory will never get used. They will get damaged. They will get pilfered. They will get stolen. They will get broken. They will be damaged. So all that put together can increase our cost. That's why it makes economic sense for us to work hard to minimize the level of inventory we have. Suppliers can also help their customers lower production costs by lowering the price of their goods and services. See. Okay, finally, I'll end with this one. In organization, there is usually a team. Some companies call it the logistics department, others call it the supply chain department, others call it the procurement department, others call it the procurement and supply chain department. Whatever the name is, if the function of that, if the responsibility of that function is to look for suppliers and procure the requirements of the company from those suppliers. Then they will be doing what we call sourcing. Now, sourcing can be single sourcing, it can be multiple sourcing. But once we are talking about sourcing today, let me try and differentiate these two that we often use interchangeably, particularly when it comes to public sector procurement. Yeah. Some say single sourcing and sole sourcing. Technically, and in public sector procurement, they tend to use these two terminologies interchangeably, but technically they are not the same. So as a student of operations management, it is important for you to understand the technical meaning of single sourcing and understand the technical meaning of sole sourcing, so that in future you can also explain it well to others. Now, single sourcing, let's say University of Ghana, we supply our lecturers with water, bottled water. So we buy large quantities of bottled water each month, and we give it to our lecturers to drink so they can teach you people here. And the University of Ghana can decide that for the supply of water to its lecturers, it is going to get all the requirements. So even if they need 10,000 bottles of water each month, all the 10,000 bottles of water will be purchased from a single supplier, and that is Belacqua. Even though there are alternative suppliers like Special Eyes, like Voltic and others, University of Ghana decides that for all its supply of 10,000 bottles of water a month, it is only one company that will supply, Belacqua. That is what we refer to as single sourcing. Single sourcing. Single sourcing. So you have alternative suppliers who can do the job, but you decide that for the supply of the quantities that you want, only one supplier will do the job. Single sourcing. So how different is single sourcing from sole sourcing? Sole sourcing is where you do not have any alternative supplier available. And a typical example is energy supply in Ghana. If you're in the southern sector and you want to buy electricity, apart from UCG, can you get it from any other company?
No.
No, it's only UCG. It's only UCG. You don't have any alternative. So that is the only company available to supply the product. That is sole sourcing. That is sole sourcing. If you're in the northern sector, you buy it from, is it Netco? Because ECG is not in the north, so you buy it from Netco, and Netco is the only supplier of energy in the northern sector of the country. So that will also be sole sourcing. From what I've said, what is the difference between sole sourcing and single sourcing? Any idea? Okay, Leonie.
So if I understand, single sourcing is when you have multiple suppliers, but you decide to go with one.
Perfect.
And the other one, you have just one supplier that supplies, so you have no choice then to use that supplier.
Perfect. Thank you for that succinct explanation. Now let's look at multiple sourcing. A lot of you men here are doing multiple sourcing, and you understand why I'm saying you are doing multiple sourcing instead of you people doing single sourcing. Yeah, multiple sourcing is where, coming back to my University of Ghana example, we need 10,000 pieces of this bottled water every month. We decide that for reasons of security, there could be other reasons, but security is one of them. For reasons of security, it is not advisable for us to give all the supply to Belacqua. So we decide that we are going to split our 10,000 requirements of bottled water into two. But some companies can even split it into 3, 4, 5, depending on what objective they want to achieve. And then give it to other suppliers. So supplier A will have, let's say, 60% of the quantities required, and supplier B will have 40% of the quantities required. So University of Ghana can say, okay, so Belacqua, you will supply 10,000. So you supply 6,000, and Special Eyes, you supply 4,000. It's a way of trying to build competition into the supply process so that Belacqua will not be a kind of simple. How do we say that in English? Is it sometimes when people know that they are the only suppliers for the product, they become swollen-headed, and sometimes they become to they tend to play around, not obeying some requirements, time delivery requirements and all that. But once you split the order between 2 or 3 alternative suppliers, and they all have a portion to supply, It builds competition into the process, and suppliers are able to live up to their expectations because they know that if they fool around, what would you do as the buyer? Ms. Market, what would you do?
Switch.
You switch, you take it from them and give it to other people. You see? And that is multiple sourcing. So multiple sourcing is where for the supply of a particular material, for the supply of particular parts, for the supply of a particular component, the order is placed between 2 or more suppliers, multiple suppliers. So if I'm in my class today and you have only one girlfriend, even though there are alternative girls around that you can secure in addition, but you are sticking to only one girlfriend, what are you doing?
Single source.
Single sourcing. If you are in my class today, and for your supply of love needs, you have split it into, I know some people can go to the extent of 3 and 4. But most people will go for 2. So if you are doing 2, you are doing multiple sourcing. But don't forget that multiple sourcing also goes with cost. So for example, for the supply of the bottled water, if we have only one supplier supplying, in a month, how many orders do we have to place? Only one. But if we are doing multiple sourcing and we have 3 suppliers, we have to place 3 different orders. So the cost of ordering will go up. Just the same with relationships. If you have single person attached to you, in a month, if it's 100 cedis, because and then you take it, 100 Ghana. But if there are 3, Bismarck.
Yes, sir.
So you can see that disadvantage of multiple sourcing.
Yes, sir. Cost. High cost.
I said this in the weekend class and somebody said, oh, when you're a who needs to a moment. But anyway, any question up to this point? I'm winding up now on this slide. Okay. Francis Nathan.
Sir, with the inventory, you made mention that it costs. But sometimes too, if you don't keep enough inventory or stock, you may run out of stock and probably your customers might leave to your competitors. So how do you go about that one too?
Yes, so if you have a good visibility of the supply chain, you have good working relationship with your the downstream members of the supply chain, they will share that information with you. It's all about information. It's all about information technology and how that will enable you to see the end-to-end. Yes, if I don't have inventory, but I can have information rather than inventory. And that information will help me plan better. Again, I'll refer you back to the Walmart example. So those suppliers that Walmart is connected with electronically, such that when Walmart scans a product, those suppliers receive the same information. You think those people will produce items and keep them in stock? They don't do that. They look at how the sales level is going, and then based on quantities being sold by Walmart, they'll produce. So here they are producing with real time. And they don't need to provide and put it down and say, they will come and buy. Who will come and buy? Is your question answered? But particularly in our part of the world where the concept of supply chain management isn't too, companies have not embraced it that much. Even manufacturers don't want suppliers to see what is happening in their end. Retailers don't want manufacturers to see what is happening in their end. Obviously, the only means to survive is for you to keep that inventory. And that's one of the reasons why these standalone entities are keeping the inventory to support what they are doing. Is your question answered?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please, the last one.
Go ahead.
The very last. So would just in time solve this type of problem? I mean, just in time, will it solve this inventory problem?
Yes, just in time will solve. But again, just in time cannot be in isolation. I think last week I did tell you that with just in time, you let the person know that you're operating on just in time for this component. And just in time, the concept is all about shifting that responsibility of inventory keeping to your supplier by making the supplier aware. And you see, the supplier buys into the idea because he knows that when the products are there, you are going to buy it. You are going to buy it. So just in time solves that inventory problem to a large extent. But like I said, just in time works best in the automotive industry where the supply chain is a cluster. Yeah, the suppliers are not too far away from the main manufacturer. I gave you an example that if the automotive industry in Ghana is well developed, like where Kantanka is close to Winneba Runabout. Like by now, land around Winneba Runabout will be full of companies that are manufacturing parts and components. Some will be producing boat and not, some will be producing car seats, leather, some will be producing paint and other things to be supplied to Kantanka. And because these companies are within close proximity, Kantanka can then run what we call the just-in-time. Because if I say, hey, it's just a way, just a beacon, and the company is inside your company with the material required. So I don't need to buy and keep. That's why we said that just-in-time originated in the automotive industry. In fact, it is Toyota company that started it. And originally, just-in-time was called the Toyota Production System. Was called the Toyota Production System. Is your question answered?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So finally, on outsourcing, this is the act of purchasing goods and services that were originally produced in-house from an outside supplier due to unexpected increases in demand, due to breakdown in plants and equipment, due to testing of product, due to temporary lack of plant capacity, due to insufficient resources and desire to focus on core competencies. Outsourcing. These days, a lot of our women are doing outsourcing. In traditional marriage homes, the women used to do the washing. Well, with the advent of the washing machines, now career women are doing their own washing. But before the advent of washing machines, what some women were doing was that every Saturday, Auntie Mansa would come to the house. Do we have anybody here practicing it? Leonie, have you practiced this before?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you still practicing it?
Once in a while.
Once in a while. Do you have any of the reasons here that supports the reason why you outsource something that you originally used to do it in-house yourself as a company, as an individual? Now you let an outsider, and usually the outsider who is coming in to do it will be a specialist, somebody with a high capacity in the area, a specialist in the area to come and deliver that service for you. Do you have any of the reasons here supporting what you do?
Desire to focus on core competencies. I think if at all it meets, like I have other things I have to focus on,
Yeah.
their priority, and I
Yeah.
see those other things as primary.
As core. Yeah. Okay. So you see, couple of years back, you see companies in Tema. Yeah, early in the morning, you see Vaco buses carrying workers from Tema Township to where Vaco is. You see Tema Steel Company. You see their blue buses carrying workers from Ashama Tema to the company. These days, all of them, they no longer have those buses anymore because they think that they should focus on their core competencies. So they outsource. And you see companies, is it Agate Transport? Have you seen that?
Yes, sir.
Doing that, providing that kind of service for a lot of the companies in Ghana. Agate Transport. There's another one. I've forgotten the name of the company. You go to security services. Gone are those days when organizations will have to employ their own security staff. I think for the traditional universities, I don't know whether that tradition can be broken. For them, they continue to employ their own security staff. But if you go to the private universities, you don't find their own security staff. They always outsource. So you see, is it K4? You see Kruger, you see other security organizations. Francis, where do you work?
Local government, municipal.
You people, they use your own security. Again,
Yes,
another one.
I've worked with NHIS too. They outsource the security.
The security.
NHIS. Okay.
Now, next semester, if we happen to go do on-site where you come to campus, our graduate campus, this cleaning staff over there, they are not our own employees. They are another organization. We have outsourced the cleaning. We think that we should focus on teaching our students what we need to teach them and leave the cleaning to a specialist organization to do it for us. So we have outsourced it. That's what outsourcing means. And some of these reasons may justify why a company would outsource. It's one of the big things in the banking sector now. Banking sector, I don't know why, but they seem to be consistently cutting down on costs rather than employing. They tend to depend a lot on casual staff as well as workers from these recruitment firms like Linear Services, Linear, what's other example? Montran also provide human resource to some of the banks. Montran. If you want a banking sector role as a teller or something, you can apply to Linear Services or Montran. They will recruit you and send you to one of the banks. Yeah, and the reason may be cost. We have the advantages of single sourcing and then advantages of multiple sourcing. From what I've told you about single sourcing and multiple sourcing, I'm sure you can think through and derive your own set of advantages for single sourcing. You can also derive your own advantages for multiple sourcing. And usually the advantages of multiple sourcing, when you twist them, they become the disadvantages of single sourcing. Class, up to this point, any question? Okay, so we are done with, I think we'll do the last calculation. We need one more session to get to the end of the semester. I'd wish you find one beautiful evening like we've done today in the course of the week. If you're able to find that, I'll be very, very grateful, and I'll give all of you toffee. So find one beautiful evening. In fact, I can promise you that I'll do only 2 hours, only 2. So find one beautiful evening this week, and then let's meet and we'll finish up with scheduling. Scheduling is one of the things we need to do here. Yeah, we need some small calculations here to finish it up. So, cost rep, please talk to the class, find a date and give it to me. 2 hours and I'll be done. Thank you very much for your time. And
sir.
Welcome.
Go ahead.
So I think they can agree here on the time that will be good for them. So we pick it from there.
Okay. Class, which day will be available? This one, I'm at your mercy. So whichever time you give me, I'm ready.
Can we do the same time next week?
Next Sunday, eh?
Yes, please.
Okay. And then we've also agreed that we should do the quiz on Friday.
Yes, please.
Okay. And we said in the evening, some of you have exams, so we should do it mid-morning.
Yes.
For example, starting at 10 a.m. Okay.
Yes, please.
All right. So on that note, will somebody move for us to bring the class to an end?
In the absence of any further questions.
Ladies first, continue.
Go ahead.
In the absence of any further questions, I'd like to move for the closure of this meeting so that Dr. Ofori Amanfo can get some rest.
AKA Teacher Joshua. That's what your course rep calls me.
Teacher Joe.
Seconded by
Bismarck.
Bismarck.
I second.
Thank you, class. Thank you for your time. And please go through what we've done. Get ready for next Friday. Yeah?
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Next Friday should be first aid. Though.
It will be what?
It should be first aid.
First
aid. First aid.
Meaning?
We are still looking at wound from the first eye.
Oh, this second one, I'm sure you, the first one, I think you were not too prepared. This second one, I should think you'll do better. That's why I've given you a second chance. So don't mess up with the second chance, do your best. Like I keep telling